You're listening to JFDI with the Two Lauras, the podcast for social media freelancers who want to get more visible, streamline their systems, master their mindset, and make more sales. I'm Laura Davis, and alongside my co-host Laura Moore, we're on a mission to make working as a freelancer easier, because working from home shouldn't mean working alone. We believe relying solely on long-term clients is a big mistake. It means your bank balance is capped and puts your income at risk when a client cancels. We're on a mission to help you avoid the retainer trap, and we want you to build a more flexible business, which means you can make more money without working with more retainer clients. If you're worried about being stuck in the retainer trap, then membership is the place to be. Inside, we give you the systems, training, support and accountability to build out new offers that don't mean taking on more long-term clients and commitments. You get monthly training from world-class experts in their field. You get coaching and support from both us and our incredible community of hundreds of other social media freelancers. And to make your life even easier, you also get access to Hubsy, the only software you need to run your business. So whether you need to send an invoice, schedule your content, manage your email marketing, or set up a website or sales page, we've got you covered. Annual membership costs less than £3 a day, and all the details are in the description. Now, on with the show.
On the show today, I want to talk about those awkward conversations that you might start having with clients in regards to AI. Now, if you haven't had those conversations yet, amazing. It's likely that they may start coming up because every single time you open Instagram, TikTok, wherever, everyone's talking about AI. So it kind of stands to reason that business owners are starting to think about these things too. And they're probably thinking about them because they're using AI in their own business, maybe not in a marketing perspective, but they're using AI for lots of different things within their business and maybe in their personal lives. And so therefore, they understand some of the capabilities. And I say some because, the vast majority of people don't understand the full capabilities and how to use it. But because they have had this little taste and they think they have an understanding of AI, they might then start to have these conversations with you and start asking these questions. And I feel like you need to be ready to be able to answer those questions without it being awkward for you and without you panicking and saying the wrong thing. It's very much like how everyone thinks that they know how to use LinkedIn or Instagram or what have you, because theoretically, anybody on the planet could go and post on one of these platforms. So therefore they think they know how to use it. But from a marketing perspective, it's very different. It's exactly the same with AI. Yes, AI is available to anybody, but what you get out of AI obviously depends on what you put in. And if you're a marketer and you're being strategic in your use of AI, you're going to get something very different out of AI than if you're just Joe Blogs and you're just putting things in without the right context, etc. And I think that forms part of the conversation as well. But let's go into some questions that you may see come up. There's 5 questions I want to go through and how I think that you could approach these. Now, of course, how you answer these is entirely up to you, but I do think they should be something that you should sit with and think about for a little while so that you're ready to answer these questions, maybe on a discovery call or on a client meeting or what have you. So you know where your stance is and you know what your response would be to a client. So let's start with the obvious one, which is a client saying to you, are you going to use ChatGPT, Claude, whatever, to create my content? And I think it stands to reason that they want to know the answer to that for various different reasons. But let's just go with the main question. Are you going to use AI to create my content? If the answer is that AI is touching any part of your workflow, then the answer needs to be yes. Let's not start lying about these things. You need to be honest with clients. I think that's kind of a given. But I think how you frame that you're doing that is important. So I think an answer like, yes, I use AI as part of my workflow, in a similar way to how you would use Canva or Hubsy or Notion, whatever tools it is that you use, I think is fair because it is part of a workflow, isn't it? It's not doing all of the work for you, and you're going to get far better responses from your AI than they're going to get from theirs. But I think being very honest that you are using it as part of your workflow is important. And I think also reassuring people that despite you using ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, wherever it is that you're using, that you are still in control of every single piece of content. It's still shaped by the strategy that you have come up with. It's still, shaped by the conversations you're having with your clients, by those audience personas, by the competitor research, etc., etc. And every single thing that makes it out in front of their audience is still reviewed by a human before it touches their account, before one of their audience can get their eyeballs on it. It has been looked at with a human eye. It has been checked. It has been verified. There is, every single thing that you're putting out is still accurate and correct. And I think that's the real question that they're asking. It's kind of a two-pronged question, isn't it? They're asking, are you using ChatGPT for my content? If so, maybe it would be cheaper for me to just do it myself. But also they're asking, are you using it, so therefore is what's going out going to be any good? And is it going to help me to meet my end goal? And is it going to make me look good? So I think we need to make sure that we're kind of answering those things as well. Now, what if a client says to you, but I don't want to use AI on my content. I literally don't want AI to touch any of my content. And I think that's fair. It's a fair thing for them to say. How you answer it will depend on you and how you work. But I think the reassurance of it being fair is, probably a good place to start. I personally, in this day and age, think that it's unreasonable for a client to expect to have exactly the same service at the same price without you using AI, because everything is far harder and far more long-winded if you're not using AI. So I think it's fair to say that, yes, I am using AI. If you want me to discuss how we can do this without AI, it's going to be a change of scope, potentially going to be a change of rate. So let's talk about what an AI-free service would look like in terms of, results, output, time, for example, and turnaround time, and work that way. But I think also potentially asking them why, because a lot of times people might say they don't want AI used on their content because they have had a bad experience. Maybe they've worked with an agency and who are just giving them really terrible AI content. Maybe they've used AI before and they've had bad results from it. So maybe it's coming from a place of that bad experience and the lack of knowledge that you can actually get great results with AI. But maybe they also just don't understand what you're using AI for. And they don't understand that actually AI isn't the thing that's like creating that end content. It's helping you to understand those pain points of customers and understand, like, do the deep research, do the competitor analysis and all of those things. And maybe they don't understand that. So I think, again, it's a conversation to have. But if your client is very adamant that AI cannot be used in your workflow, I think it's a price conversation and a scope conversation that needs to be had. And not necessarily because AI makes things cheaper, and we'll come on to that in a minute, but because how you work is going to be different. And so I think you need to think about that in terms of how you're going to price things. Because if you are used to using AI with clients and then you take on a new client and you're not able to use AI, does that mean that you haven't got space now for another client because you're essentially using that time with this client? So, is that capping your income, right? So you need to have all of these things kind of running through your head. Coming on to that point about should you charge less because you're using AI, what if a client does say to you, you're using AI, maybe, why are you not charging me less? And I think potentially if you've been with a client for a long time and they have seen the changes kind of come along and they've seen that people are using AI and maybe within their own business, they have been able to cut costs because some of those things are being run through AI. I think it stands to reason there might be something that's running through their head of, if you're using AI, maybe I should be paying less. But actually, I think, again, it's a knowledge gap that they don't understand. And, reassuring that you understand why they would think that is, again, important. But I think that they potentially don't understand that having AI in your pocket means that you can do so much of a better job for them now, because you now have access to things that they never would have had access to. Like customer research that usually would only be available to massive brands with big budgets. You can now do a lot of that yourself. You can do it for your clients. You can stress test campaign ideas, and you can come at things from different angles that you may not have spotted without AI, because you've got all of that information that you may not have had, especially with a client where you're asking them who they're selling to and they're like, everybody. Great, that's really helpful. So now you have so much more knowledge and information on the strategy side, but also you have an unemotional, uninvolved machine that is able to pull out all of the information that is relevant without kind of passing by things and going, oh, that's not relevant, just because emotionally you think it's not. And it can look at things from a far different angles than we as humans maybe might have done. So I think if a client says to you, surely I should be charging less, it's a conversation of helping them understand that actually they're getting more. They're getting more access to information, more access to competitor analysis and all of that stuff that typically would only be available if they were to have those massive budgets, which, most of our clients probably don't have. The likes of Coca-Cola and Nike with their massive budgets, they would have had access to so many more things than Joe Blogs down the road. So I think it's a brilliant thing that they have now got that, but they just need to understand that they do need to pay for it in some way. And yes, it's not as expensive as it used to be, but it is still something that you are doing for them, that you know what to ask the AI, so you're getting the right information out of it. What if a client comes to you and says, well, I spoke to ChatGPT and it said we should be doing X, Y, Z, and it's totally the opposite of what you're doing or what you think? And I think, again, this is one of those things that comes up time and time again. If you have a client who's like, oh, well, I saw this reel on Instagram and they said we should do this, or this person that I follow on TikTok said we should do this, or my niece's 12-year-old kid said we should try this. And ChatGPT is just another one of those layers. It's just another one of those layers that's going to throw out general advice to people that they're going to take as gospel. So we need to make sure that they understand, that probably is great general advice, but when it's applied to a different business, it can give different results. And unless you have given ChatGPT or Claude or whoever all of the information about the business, the audience, the data, the past campaign performance, the competitive position, unless it has all of that, the advice it's spitting out is going to be generic. It's not going to be really specific and driven down to, what your client wants or needs, because they may have not even told it what they want or need. It doesn't understand the position of the business. It doesn't understand what's been done before or what hasn't been done before, what's worked, what hasn't. So when a client says that to you, it's very much bringing it back round to, that's great. I'm so glad you've got this, from ChatGPT. It is great general advice. Luckily, we have far more specific advice. We've done all of this work, blah, 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 blah. And it's my job to take all of this knowledge and give you the answer that is true specifically for you and your business. And this is why it's different than what ChatGPT or Claude has spat out, because we've done this work, and don't forget you said this, and don't forget this has happened in the past, and yada, yada, yada. So they really understand the difference. And I think a lot of times, because we have access to all of these tools, we can take things as gospel when they're not. And especially when we haven't fed it the right information. The last question I want to leave you with is one that I think probably isn't coming up yet for many social media managers, but it will, and it's going to come quick. And this is clients asking you to train their AI on their brand voice, their brand tone, their IP, their everything about their business, so that they can do whatever they want to do within the business, whether it's marketing, sales, operations, whatever. And they might be asking you to do this. Now, a lot of people would immediately go, there's no way I am training a business's AI to be a good marketer, because that's going to leave me out of work. Let me just reassure you, you still need a human involved. You still need a human involved in the marketing, because AI doesn't have a conscience, right? It can't make those last human decisions. It has no taste. Let's just put that out there. Human has taste. A human knows immediately there's no way I can say that. Whereas AI might still want to say things. It doesn't have that level of emotional maturity and taste, basically. So there will always be a place for a human. doesn't matter what happens, unless something very dramatic happens, which I just can't see happening in the near future, there's always going to be a place for a human when it comes to marketing to a human, right? If a robot was marketing to a robot, maybe that's different. But we are humans marketing to humans, and we still need that human element. So training a client's AI tool to sound like them for whatever purpose, whether it's for their social content, their email, their client communication, their sales pages, their SOPs, whatever it is not a bad thing, because they will still need a marketer to be able to do the marketing. However, what I will say to you is that this is a paid service. And this could be a very high ticket service. As more and more people start to use AI within their businesses, the better they train their tools, the better the output will become. I say this from experience, because when we were using AI, let's say 2 years ago, the output we were getting from ChatGPT or Claude or wherever is very different than what we get now, because we have spent so much time and money training our AI tools and learning how to train the AI tools properly, learning how the input needs to go into those tools so that it can kind of go through all of that information and give us what we want. And I'm not just talking on don't use M dashes and you can swear, or don't use this emoji. I'm talking like deep training. And that's what a client will pay a lot of money for. And if they're not paying you, they will be paying somebody else. So I think it's definitely something that you could learn to deliver as a paid service. And I think also you're going to be doing this anyway. You're going to be training your AI tools when you're working with clients so that you can get great output in the content that you're creating for them. So it stands to reason that at some point they may want you to train their own AI tools so that they have, similar kind of output for the things that they need to create. And it might not be social media content. It might be, like I said, sales pages, product descriptions. It could be like leaflets. It could be literally anything, but they want to make sure that everything comes out really, really well out of AI. And it is a separate piece of work. It's a separate quote because it includes a build, includes documentation, it includes the research that goes along with it. It's a lot of time and effort, but also you're probably going to want to train the team on how to use it. So it's a fantastic service that a social media manager should start to think about delivering. Now, of course, there may be lots of other questions that clients ask you when it comes to AI. And I think it's important to just sit and think about the clients you're working with at the moment, maybe the type of niche you work in, and what sort of questions, concerns might they be having, and what sort of things might they come to you and ask, and be ready for those questions. It also comes down to like the ethics, doesn't it, and the decisions that you need to make in your business, so the sort of things that you're putting into your AI, what you're telling clients about AI, who owns the AI generated content, all of those sorts of things. We've put together an AI ethics cheat sheet for you to make this much easier. The questions that I've just gone through in this episode are on this cheat sheet, but there's also lots of other things. So we've got the 7 decisions that you need to make this week. They're on there, including example answers. You've got also some ready-to-use scripts to help you, and it's totally free. If you want to grab this ethics cheat sheet, just drop us a DM on Instagram. Just put 190, that's 190, that's the number of this episode. So drop us a DM, pop in there, 190, we'll send this over to you. You can have a quick read through this. This is the conversation that people just don't seem to be having at the moment, and I think it's important that you do sit down and have a think about this. All of these decisions need to be made because things are changing and there will be processes that need to be put in place in your business to make sure that when you are using AI, you're using it in the most ethical way, but also in the most honest and open way with your clients. So send us a DM, we'll send you over this ethics cheat sheet, and we'll be back next week with another episode of JFDI with the 2 Lauras. We'll see you then.
If you want more support, strategy and systems to run your social media business, we send exclusive content to our email list almost every day. You can sign up at the2lauras.com/emails. And make sure to follow us on Instagram at the2lauras and visit our website, the2lauras.com, for more advice and support. Thank you so much for being part of our community, and we'll see you on socials.